Feels really weird. Liz is just staring at me right now when we're talking because Art told us we have to stare at each other.
It is not as awkward as when we take photos together. We have to gaze into each other's eyes, you know.
Oh, okay.
My
Yes.
goodness.
We're
Hey,
conversing.
we are conversing. Also, for those of you listening, we need some referrals. We need a photographer and a tax strategist. So if anybody's listening to this podcast episode, I think the best thing that happens in our life is that somebody's just like, yeah, I heard you were in need of this, and
Yes.
I got a guy, I got a girl.
Yes. We are all about, here's the thing, referrals hold weight, man.
Mhm.
Like personal experience. And we know this better than anyone as a, small business with clients that refer people. I trust my friends and family with a referral much more than like the Google machine or, driving by a billboard.
Yeah.
Like, please, 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 we want to hear from you if you have any insight in either of these areas.
Yeah, we're specifically from a photography perspective, looking for a brand photographer in Chicagoland area. So we'll probably go to the city, really elevating and changing scenery because we've had a great photographer for the past few years. Love her dearly. Brand photography is not like the thing in the city that she really does. Like we do more,
Family.
lifestyle stuff out,
Mhm.
and we've kind of run out all the places
A
around
lot of
here.
places. We've done all of the
Unless
fields
you want to go back
and
to
the
that
barns.
the pond and the tree and the weird, yeah. So, yeah, that is what we are in need of. But happy Cinco de Mayo. Have yourself a good mezcalita. That's my cocktail these days after our trip in Mexico. We love the mezcalitas. Basically, I'm going to give it away. Here's your skinny. Okay. You take mezcal.
I don't like mezcal.
Well, it's smoky, yeah. So you could take a tequila if you wanted. I like smoky. So you take mezcal and you take a little bit of Mike's hot, extra hot honey as your agave or sweetener, because we don't use any simple syrup or sweet and sour or anything like that. Fresh lime juice and a splash of club soda. Maybe 100 calories. Spicy, smoky, delicious.
I like regular margaritas. I don't like smoky. So like really weird. Today I had to get my retainers changed. I'm getting somewhere with this story. And they drill off the brackets that were currently and they change the brackets and locations. It tasted like I was eating a barbecue.
I remember that.
Like
Yep.
it was like smokiness. And I was like, I don't like it. Please, please finish fast.
She also but then it's weird because you like your chicken like extra, extra done.
I do. I do not like any potential for E. coli. It is, yes, I like it crispy. I like it charred. Same with my steaks. Kill me. I am that person. I am the person that you are like, get out of a steakhouse. You are a total catastrophe in here. You are asking for a medium done steak. That is me.
But you like sushi, so.
But I do like sushi.
Yeah.
I do. I very much so like sushi.
Yeah.
Don't love sashimi though. Don't love like the rawness, but I like tuna tartare, kill me. I don't know. I'm a walking.
You know what the
anomaly.
best type of tartare is wagyu, beef wagyu, but it's like really hard to find. A lot of the places that we used to go, some of the steakhouses around here stopped carrying it. It's very disappointing. So anyways, maybe we'll get some in Miami this week because we're going to be out there this week. You guys, I'm excited for Wednesday's episode, Ben Azadi, and that's actually who we're going to his book launch, Metabolic Freedom. Really excited for that podcast. He's a wealth of knowledge, just a gem of a human being. Yeah. So make sure that you tune into that episode. Today, though, we're going to dive into Low Dose Naltrexone, which is one of our favorite pharmaceuticals. I recommend it a lot. We also see this on our genetics test, where it can be very beneficial for people who are more prone to cellular inflammation. And the way we would kind of describe this is if you have a car that is running, right? Your engine is running and you're driving and it's getting hot and you have no fan and no coolant, you're probably going to be up Schitt's Creek real soon, right? Your car is going to start smoking. You're going to be on the side of the road, not going anywhere. And this is really where, when we look at cellular inflammation, we have cells that produce a ton of heat when they're working properly. But what we need is the ability to deflame, to cool off. And so many women, probably because of the types of cases that we take on, have multiple genetic blocks. And then it makes so much sense for them. Becca's talked about this. I've talked about this in terms of our personal stories, where we're looking to say, why, did I struggle with inflammation for so long? She's very prone to inflammation. And the genetics test is very powerful. And we do see that this is one of the best therapies. And it's very gentle. It's very modulating. So although our YouTube listener had to break up with us because we used some big words she didn't like as a nurse, and it was too big for even people that she would talk to. Thank you for that beautiful comment that you left on our YouTube channel. We are going to dive into the science. We're going to give you the rundown of what this is. It's going to get a little bit wordy here, but we're also going to try to dumb it down for you and also have you walk away understanding how this pharmaceutical, which your physician can prescribe. And honestly, if you have any thyroid issues, I would be recommending that you're talking with your endocrinologist about low dose naltrexone. There's so much research and evidence about the use of this in many, many conditions. And so rather than sit here and bore you with a list of those, the resource that you can go to is ldnresearchtrust.org. And you can look on their conditions list by category: neurological, gastrointestinal, thyroid, all the things, hormonal, even like what you're dealing with. And you are going to find the research around how this could be a beneficial therapeutic for you. So this is, I think, one of the game-changing therapies that we have. And it's, again, something that is not necessarily coming from a compounded pharmacy, but rather in conventional medicine, can be very helpful for you. So it's affordable. But I think that there's so much when it comes to, you know, post-COVID or long COVID, fibromyalgia. We think about people who have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, inflammatory skin condition. There's so much research here about how this can help modulate the immune system that it's negligent if we don't utilize this therapy. And for most of you all, I want to say this too before we go through this. This is not a quick fix. This is not something, because it is low dose, which we'll talk about. It's not something that you are going to be like, I took it and bam, in 2, 3, 4, 5 days, I feel a huge difference, because it's very, very gentle. And in fact, if you're over the age of 40, a little clinical pearl here, you can go to agelessrx.com and they can prescribe this to you. And what they're going to do is they're going to walk you up from 1.5 milligrams to 4.5 milligrams, but it's gentle. And if you're somebody who's constantly stressed, and maybe you're not wanting to do some of the nervous system regulation as much as you should, or you can't, or you just have a really, demanding, stressful life, this is a therapy that can come on board, but it's gentle. So you have to continue it. It's not something that you're going to use like maybe short term, you're in and you're out. You're looking at, in most of the research, 6+ months to really see the full benefit. And then again, based upon your genetics, if this is something that you can benefit from, you would be on it longer term.
So it's kind of interesting and cool. Naltrexone. So we're talking about low dose naltrexone. Naltrexone basically is an opioid antagonist. And so what it was originally developed and used for was weaning people off of opioids. So think in, really extreme cases like heroin, but then Percocet, Lortab, Vicodin, these illicit drugs that essentially people became addicted to because it would block these opioid receptors in really high doses and help people, because that's essentially what those drugs do, is they attach to those receptors, right? And so essentially, to understand how LDN works, we need to talk about kind of a couple biological principles. So first is these opiate receptors, okay? So they're involved in multiple different biological systems in the human body. They regulate a number of different functions via the central release of natural opioids. Okay, so I'm talking endorphins. Okay. Second, a class of proteins called toll-like receptors, TLRs, are part of the immune system. So Liz mentioned earlier a couple of things that this has been shown to help with, a lot of autoimmune-based conditions, and we'll talk about how. But basically, these provide a first line of defense against microbial invasion. So possessing the ability to, recognize and be activated by these pathogens, and also endogenous signaling molecules. And lastly, when given at this low dose, it has this antagonist activity in these areas, right? So it's able to modify these functions by these receptor groups and suppress unwanted immune function. So it does not happen overnight. This is something that is absolutely a long game. You may not even experience things for months. They say that up to a year is kind of like it's grown into its full effect. But all of these Crohn's, Hashimoto's, rheumatoid arthritis, autism, Sjogren's, psoriasis, we see it also because of the effect on the opioids. We see it with mental dysfunction. So a lot of people that have a lot of mood disorders, people that are dealing with a lot of highs and lows, it has helped and seen to help with that because of its effect on endorphin levels. So at these lower doses, it basically boosts endorphin levels by partially blocking those opioid receptors during specific hours. So that's ultimately like why this came to be a lower dose therapy. It was originally created for people that were addicted to drugs and addicted to opioids and helping them get off of that in using a more quote unquote like healthy option,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. And so when we think about or let's look at the historical data here of how much naltrexone was actually prescribed. 200 milligrams was the full dose. And that's what's been licensed for treatment of addictions. When we're talking about low dose naltrexone, we're talking about 1.5, 4.5 is the most common. Taken nightly, like before bed. Sometimes you can change this up depending upon how you respond to it. But some individuals will go up from a mood disorder perspective, or if they are somebody who is really chronically prone to a lot of inflammation, maybe they need
Cancer.
25 milligrams, right? It can be used, yes, in cancer treatment, but maybe they need 25 milligrams. So it really depends. But by all means, like when we say low dose, we're not even talking about a tenth in most cases
Yeah.
of the actual dose that they would be using to treat that opioid addiction. So as I mentioned before, this is very gentle. It works to modulate this immune system, reduce inflammation, and even support hormone balance. So it's not an immune system suppressant though. And that's the important thing here. Like other therapies are, think like rapamycin. We've talked a little bit about that in other shows, but this is just more calming and modulating. It's not a suppressant. And so this is one thing that I have seen very powerful for individuals that have fibromyalgia, that have a lot of gut pain when they're maybe, going through a flare. This can be very helpful. And that might be when they increase the dose here because it's going to help work with the body's, the chemicals there essentially with a chemical reaction. So a little bit of a high level overview of just how it works. It's going to boost your endorphins. So again, temporarily blocks that opioid receptors. LDN stimulates a compensatory increase in the production of endorphins. These natural hormones support pain relief and emotional resilience. Another way to put it is that your LDN here essentially tricks the brain into producing more natural opioids, which can lift your mood and dull pain. These effects last generally 4 to 6 hours. Again, the modulation of the immune system here, right? Making it less reactive. This is, as Becca was saying before, why we use it in a lot of autoimmune conditions, especially Hashimoto's, which we'll talk about. And then it reduces that inflammatory cytokine activity in the body, which are small proteins released by immune cells. Think about, we always say this for your menstrual cycle, right? Your period. If you feel that bloating, kind of swelling, maybe some cramping, it's an inflammatory event. There's a lot of cytokine activity, and these are key causes of inflammation. Related conditions, especially with estrogen dominance, thinking like endometriosis, adenomyosis, when tissue, that is when tissue that lines the uterus grows into the muscular wall of the uterus, and other forms, again, of chronic pain. So I think it's really powerful. When we talked about the autoimmune disease, Hashimoto's is one that is really well researched with LDN. And so we know that is when your immune system essentially is attacking the thyroid organ. So all autoimmune generally has a tissue of attack. LDN is commonly used with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and it helps balance the immune system, leading to lower levels of antibodies over time. Now, there's also other peptides that we like that can help, right? Thymosin alpha 1, KPV, like there's several others we'll get into next week. But definitely if you are somebody who is struggling with Hashimoto's, go and look at the ldnresearchtrust.org, bring this up, look at all of the other conditions, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, multiple sclerosis. We know that when we have one autoimmune, we're more prone to multiples, right? Like I had children's RA. We were just talking on a episode earlier today, and I was thinking about, we didn't get to talk about this with Dane Johnson, the Crohn's colitis guy, but I was actually thinking when he mentioned that he worked for Papa John's, I was like, well, hot damn, I used to eat Papa John's a lot as a child. I wonder if that played a role, right? Because I had the children's rheumatoid arthritis, prednisone and methotrexate led me right into a ton of, I'm sure, liver burden, which had that systemic hormonal acne, horrible, horrible PMS. Obviously, I didn't know anything then that I do now, but I'm just like, this makes total sense when you can start to piece together the timeline of your life and how things get worse. chronic constipation, leading to a lot of, issues with my thyroid, high levels of antibodies because I had all these infections. I had the candida, the giardia, the H. pylori, and just overgrowth and dysbiosis. I wish I had this support and knew that knowledge then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. LDN it's pretty phenomenal in how much it does. And the one downside that I see sometimes is if people do not need that endorphin modulation, it can actually make some people feel a little bit worse. I've seen, and it's not common, but I've seen it in a handful of clients where we'll put it in place at night. And the reason that you want to put it at night is because of the timing of it. So when you take it at 9 p.m., it aligns with the medication's potency peaking around 4 a.m. when endorphin levels are technically at their highest. So it allows it to kind of partially block opioid receptors simultaneously, followed by a release, leading to an endorphin surge. And that's what helps modulate the immune system. That's what helps with the mood. That's what helps with all of that. But if someone maybe doesn't have dysregulated endorphin release and detoxification and degradation of neurotransmitters and all of the things that affect mood, they might have more anxiousness or feel a lower mood with it. And so again, this is so person dependent. The reason that we love LDN is because, like Liz was mentioning, it has this kind of like 4 to 6 hour life. It has a short half-life ultimately. When medications have shorter half-lives, they're much safer because it's much easier to wean them off of someone. Antidepressants, anti-anxieties have very long half-lives, which is why they are so hard to get people off of. And so it's another reason we love LDN is because it is a very safe, quote unquote, like medication. It doesn't have a lot of downsides, and it's very easy if it doesn't work out for someone to get off of it. It doesn't have that kind of like negative side effect. So in terms of other things that it helps, definitely the endometriosis aspect and the adenomyosis we already touched on a little bit can also help with chronic pain conditions, the fibromyalgia, because it helps to reduce that inflammation, that immune activity, weight loss and metabolic support, because again, inflammation, right? Inflammation is the main driver in our experience of metabolic dysfunction, of weight gain, of weight loss resistance, all of these things. It's not a weight loss medication by any means, but its ability to calm inflammation, its ability to kind of modulate hormones can definitely make it a little bit easier to lose weight and more sustainable when you lose weight. Crohn's disease, absolutely. So this immune modulation that happens, basically there's an interaction of and a blockage of that opioid receptor in the GI tract, which it helps with the bowel movements that tend to happen in Crohn's disease and actually healing and repairing of the mucosal lining. And so definitely see an improvement in Crohn's activity and Crohn's disease ultimately. So there's a lot, I mean, like the list goes on. Chronic fatigue syndrome, skin conditions are really, really helpful with. And depression, anxiety, all of these things, because it just comes back to that. I consider it kind of like a safer low dose steroid
Yeah.
is ultimately how I see it working.
Without the like real negative addictive
Yes.
like side effects.
Yeah.
And again, so if you're working with a provider, they're generally going to start you at that 1.5 and work you up, titrate you up to see how you're tolerating it. The only downside that I've seen with one particular client, and we weren't even sure that it was the LDN, but that it disrupted sleep a little bit.
Yes.
But I think touching on the chronic pain conditions. So if we think about Tylenol and NSAIDs and, aspirin and all of these things, we know that they're harmful to the gut. They are gut assassins. They drive inflammation when you use them long-term, actually, and they're harmful to the liver. Like your liver has to process these things. So we think about liver and kidney health. This is going to be a little bit more of a safer alternative. The other few things here that I just kind of random ones want to call out: internal cystitis. We do get some of that, or interstitial cystitis, complex regional pain syndrome. I know that for some individuals who have had a lot of that in their history, LDN's been something that's been very nice and modulating and just enough, right, to take that pain away. And then, like you mentioned, there's definitely a lot of benefit for like psoriasis, eczema versus, again, just like some real heavy dose steroids. So who is this for, and maybe who should avoid it? Well, we've talked a lot about it could be used for anyone, honestly. I mean, many, many people, but we've talked a lot about ldnresearch.org. Go there and see the list of conditions, because you're going to find almost every condition. I mean, I looked up just the GI conditions. It was like over 20 different ones. So I think it's most beneficial for women with autoimmune diseases like Hashimoto's or lupus, fibromyalgia, MS, those types of things, experiencing, again, endometriosis or adenomyosis. We know that those can be really, really painful. Hormonal imbalances that contribute to weight gain or pain, and you're looking for an integrative approach. Remember, functional medicine, when we say functional medicine, we're meaning that you're utilizing conventional medicine tools and you're utilizing more of the natural herbal dietary lifestyle supports, not just medicate the symptom. Because oftentimes we'll see people go on a medication, there's a side effect, and they go on another medication to treat the side effect of that medication, and the list goes on. It's this vicious cycle. And so, just be mindful of this when you're going through that list. Long COVID, as I mentioned, Crohn's, patients, again, who are seeking that non-addictive pain management. Like Becca was saying, it's very, very gentle. And then again, like we said, with the Pro7 genetics, which we do offer in our practice as a one-off, it's one of the most powerful tests and tools that we have. Genetics to me are so fascinating, so cool. I've got some stuff that'll actually be coming out this week as this airs regarding some of those cellular inflammatory genes that we see, because when we're looking at our Pro7 test that we run and we're looking at the cellular inflammation, so many of them, basically, if I'm looking at somebody who has a lot of chronic GI issues, I can almost guarantee you're going to have multiple partial or full blocks, homozygous or heterozygous blocks in those genes, because you have dealt with these things cyclical over life and you just don't know it yet, and you don't have the right tools to be able to modulate yet and understand. Like, again, there's a podcast we did with Dane Johnson on Crohn's colitis, how to use your body as a guide, how to have the right tools in the toolbox when you're going through a flare, or when you're going through a time where you're like, hey man, this is going to be a high stress time. I better get my X, Y, and Z on board that maybe don't take 12 months out of the year, but I am right now because I know that stress is going to impact how my body functions and drive generally more inflammation. Then those tools are in your toolbox to use them. Who is this not suitable for? Well, number one, those of you who are already on opioid painkillers, because the naltrexone can interfere with the effectiveness. Two, people with liver issues. So you need to be really cautious because this is processed through the liver. But again, if you go to the research, you're not seeing as much like harmful damage to the liver compared to some of those over-the-counter NSAIDs. And here's the thing. I don't know. I would have to look this up and research this myself. I don't know if it's ever been really studied at the level of these individuals were using 1,000 milligrams a day, for example, right, of acetaminophen compared to 4.5 milligrams of low-dose naltrexone. We don't know that. I don't have that answer. I can maybe dig deep there, but I just think that when you look at the initial research, they're saying that it is better and less impactful to the gut microbiome and to the liver, but it's still processed through the liver. And then, of course, if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, you want to consult your healthcare provider before considering LDN.